Well, hello and welcome back to Read Becca. It's time once again for my weekly chatty catch up on everything I read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading for the present week. And it was a very discombobulated week. I was a little all over the place. I even had plans on Saturday and completely forgot them. It was very late. It was wild. So my whole week has been very, very all over the place, but I did a lot of reading. So I finished multiple things. And the first that I want to talk about is No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. This was up for a bunch of prizes when it came out, and I feel very mixed about it. It's kind of a novel in two parts. So I think what comes across most is that it's very about social media and internet culture. And in part one, we're getting a story through very short thoughts. So you can see each of these page breaks is a sort of separate train of thought that the character is having. And so it's really fragmentary. And I think that what that's talking about is the way that the internet exists in a sort of bubble of an in-group kind of way of speaking, and linguistically it moves forward so quickly, and keeping up with the new terms and phrases, new memes, just it's almost a culture of its own. So very internet culture. So one of the thoughts here is capitalism. It was important to hate it, even though it was how you got money. Slowly, she found herself moving toward a position so philosophical, even Jesus couldn't have held it, that she must hate capitalism while at the same time loving film montages set in department stores. So it's very sort of quippy. And that's part one. I feel like I connected with that quite well, but then there's a dramatic shift in part two. And part two is still written, or it's not written in that style. It's still on the page in that same style. And that doesn't make sense to me because it becomes a pretty normal narrative. Very, very linear, and it's telling a story, a single story in part two. In the second half of the book is about the character going through this really tragic medical situation. And so I would say very strong trigger warnings for that, because it's exploring her going through this real hardship. And there's virtually nothing about the internet culture during that time. And I think that the point of doing that and juxtaposing these two parts is that when you go through real hardship, all of the kind of trivial stuff becomes trivial. And for me, that feels kind of obvious to the point of ridiculousness. So I don't feel like I love this because that. I was like, I wanted something more than that. That is not impressing me as a book. But also, I feel like that may impress other people a lot more if it is that. I enjoyed the first part way more, where it was really doing this kind of interesting, quirky thing about how the internet is such an in-group without having a sense of connectedness or inclusion. It's much more about gatekeeping and exclusion and cliquishness almost. And if you don't keep up, you are going to fall behind and be part of the outgroup as well. So that was doing something more interesting to me, I think. And yet it wasn't really like a fantastic version of that. I feel like Bo Burnham's film 8th Grade has done that way better, and it's so heartfelt and melancholic and wonderful. And this is just kind of very light and potato chip like. It was easy reading though, and it did keep me engaged for sure. The writing style is really, really engaging. I think that was the strength, is probably writing style. I loved the exploration of the rapid movement of language, and just that you can't stay connected and even be speaking the same language with people online if you aren't keeping up. And that was really fascinating, and I think I enjoyed. It also kind of reminded me of Olivia Lang's Crudo. That is very similar, I think, in a lot of the things it's doing about internet culture. It's also very sort of stream of consciousness and current events and keeping up with everything. That, I feel like, is almost in parts this book, but for a 40 plus reader. And this one is maybe more geared toward a 20 something. So I should have liked Olivia Lang's book more based on my age, but I also didn't really love that one either. So I think this kind of book is just not really for me. And it might be for you if that sounds intriguing. The next thing that I read was one that's been on my TBR for ages. It's been sitting on my shelves. And I finally read Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. So this is more or less a Scrooge Christmas Carol retelling, but without the three ghosts. So we are following Wallace, and TJ Klune writes bureaucratic characters really, really well. And Wallace is super bureaucratic his whole life is work, and he is not very kind to anyone around him. He holds other people to the same standard he holds himself to, and it's kind of unrealistic because he doesn't expect them to have any humanity. So we kind of open this story with Wallace bringing in this woman who he's about to fire, and her pouring out to him how, you know, she's going through all these hardships in life and everything's just going wrong horribly, and she's just realizes that even though everyone else only thinks that Wallace has a really hard heart and is unkind, she's like, I see it deep down secretly. You really are. And you brought me in here because you could see I was struggling. And he's like, he listens, and then he fires her anyway. And it's very funny in the way it's delivered, but it's also like sad. She's having a really hard time. So he is a very Scrooge character, obviously, and that is delivered in a really humorous way that also I think still has some humanity to it, which I think Klune also does really well. So, of course, he dies very suddenly and tragically, and he is there at his funeral to hear everyone kind of being like, well, we didn't really connect with him or get to know him, and we're not really that sad because he was so mean to everybody. And so he's not very impressed with his own funeral. But someone there can see him, and that someone turns out to be Mia, a reaper. And the reaper is going to take him to a ferryman who will ferry him through to the afterlife, basically. So that's where it totally disconnects from the Scrooge element, or the delivery of the Christmas Carol, of the 3 nights and everything. This is much more about being in a limbo, being stuck there and having to sort of learn from who you are a bit. So he winds up in limbo, basically, with this ferryman and Mia, the reaper, and a couple of others who are great, great characters. And they're on the line between life and death at this tea shop. The ferryman is running a tea shop that also serves living people, but it brings in the dead as they are passing. And I found that really interesting. It reminded me a lot of The Lantern of Lost Memories. I think that one did it better, maybe because it had sort of a structure to it. This is very like flowy and people just sort of coming and going, and there isn't a lot of structure to it. But the relationships he makes with those people are so beautiful, and he's so hard and just unkind at first, and the growth of that character over the story is so interesting. And so I love that. Even though we've seen it done lots of times before, it felt really, really personal and really intimate to read. And I think there's a line that really typifies this book and just describes it so well, that one of the characters tells Wallace, like, you had to die to find your humanity. And that's sort of the journey we go on with him, of just being in this quiet space in limbo and having to understand why he's sort of stuck there, because he's not moving on, basically. And so that's the whole book. There's a kind of light, nice gay romance to it, and a lot of things about connection and relationships between people and what we find our humanity in life. But at the same time, and this is a TJ Klune, so like I had to enjoy it at the very least. I had a great time with it, but also I'm chronically allergic to sentimental books. And this was so sentimental, like just deeply, deeply cheesy inducing sentimentality. It was really, really high level of that. So that I bounce off pretty hard. And the way it wrapped up was very full of sentiment. But also that's kind of what I was expecting from this book. So I really had a great time with it and was there for the characters and the writing, the way that Klune sort of brings this to life off the page and writes just heartwarming, great books. So I need to continue on with more TJ Klune because they just really hit the spot, even when they're not like my favorite thing ever like this one. I definitely think this does not live up to House in the Cerulean Sea at all. But anyway, from that kind of light, fun book to a heavy, heavy book, The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. And this is my first big book for Big Book Summer. It's a chunker. And this is sci-fi fantasy genre blend. It's in a sort of apocalyptic world, active apocalyptic world. This is the 2nd and the 5th season series, and the seasons are quite literally apocalypses. They're these survival events, basically. And I can't talk, or I don't even know what I would talk about with a lot of this book, because there isn't very much plot. It feels like this second book is really a bridge between 2 and 3, and this series is completely sequential. So there's no gap really between book 1 and book 2. You are just continuing a single story over 3 books. So this one is hard to talk about, but also beyond just the plot, it feels like so much of what this book is about building and learning. Our main character was on a journey, kind of initially looking for her daughter, and after having her husband sort of murder one of their children, and her daughter disappeared, and she wound up on this wild journey. And now in this one, everyone all of the moving pieces have mostly stopped, and there's a lot going on because of that. And the season is ramping up, like the ideas of the world changing because this kind of tragic apocalypse is coming or starting, is so much about the world building. So we're getting a huge amount of that. And it didn't feel info dumpy to me at all. But I think the volume of that, of just having to pick up what's going on with the world, is really, really high in this book. And I also feel like there was massive character development and growth over the course of this. So this was a great book. This was a fantastic book. Like, absolutely loving the series. I can't wait to get to book 3. So excited, but it's so heavy. Like, this is very deeply tragic and full of hardship. Every single page, like, it's just difficulty, and everyone is really struggling, but it's so well worth reading. So the third book, I can't even fathom how it's going to wrap up. I'm so excited for it, but I don't want to get to it right away because I think I need some lighter reading. I don't think it's going to happen in Joy Reading June, for instance. But this one, I can understand how some readers don't love or enjoy this themselves. I can totally understand that, like why this would not be a book for some readers. But I'm now reading this, I'm baffled by the people that are just like, oh yeah, this is trash. Like, there's so much craft to this. So I don't understand how people can pick this up and read it and say that it's just not a good book. But like, the craft perspective is so immaculate to me that I feel like you have to have kind of an objective respect for this as a work, at least. I feel very confused by other readers talking about this who haven't liked this series now, because it just is blowing my mind with the quality and effort that clearly went into this. So anyway, loved it, so good. And that is it for what I read this week. What I am reading right now, I'm working on Witchwood by Tara Maffey from my TBR, yay. And I also am almost done with my first Book 2 prize book, yay. That is really exciting. I did, kind of unfortunately, I think, get the group that has 2 really heavy current affairs books in it that I'm not thrilled about, just in general. Like, I prefer not to read things that are really top of mind in the headlines, but that's all right. I will definitely give them an objective chance, and I'm sure they are really high quality because they're making it through to the semifinal in the Book 2 prize. So I haven't started either of those yet, but my first book I am definitely going to finish this weekend. So that will be progressing on, and we'll be taking up more of my reading. So maybe these wrap-ups will get shorter because I won't need to talk about my Book 2 prize books because I can't talk about them yet. As I said up top, I had a very all over the place week and had a friend in town visiting who I haven't seen in far too long. We didn't do anything too exciting. We played some board games. I think my favorite was The Worms, or Worms the board game. And Worms is an old video game, like way back when computers were newly a thing, or home PCs. And it's very, very silly. And this captured that energy very well. So I really enjoyed that one. I think otherwise, just having a lot of extra stuff going on. My foster cat, has been having struggles with food. She may have a food allergy or something. So we've been trying things surrounding that, and it's not really been going well. So we have her on a medication and now a special diet food, unfortunately. And she's here, but she's not yelly, thankfully, which may or may not be positive. It may be she's feeling crummy and she is just wanting to be lazy, or she may be feeling well. She's definitely calmer, which is probably good. But like all of the things happening, I think being extra beyond my normal routine caused me to have a really bad chronic illness flare and some really, really severe brain fog. Like, could not function for a day and a half about mentally. Like I was still functional, but like I could not put any information together or hold it in my head at all. Like even to read, I couldn't hold a sentence in my head. So I'm surprised how much reading I got done because of that. But that's all fine now. I'm feeling great now. And it is truly summer now as well. So it's warmed up immensely. And we finally are into the 90-degree temperatures and real heat for sure. The kids have left school now as well. They've been out since the last week of May pretty much here. Like we get out pretty early, I think, for the US. But that also has been interesting at the shelter because it feels like this is not typical, I don't think, but like all the families realized they need something for their kids to really do other than just bother them over summer. And so everybody's bringing in their kids to look at dogs, and a lot of great adoptions of dogs that are long-term that we wanted to get out of there. So that's exciting. But it has been very funny because we're going through a renovation. Or not just funny, but it's been different and chaotic as well because there's a renovation at the shelter and the whole adoption wing is closed because they're renovating that last basically. And so they're walking through kind of back areas where usually it's just staff and volunteers going through, and it's all kind of an unusual setup to have just random customers wandering through this area as we're trying to take dogs for walks and stuff. But it's been pretty well managed and hopefully will not be going on too much longer. This renovation has been going on so long, literally the entire time I've been there. So they're hopefully winding down. Like I saw they had the walls for the kennels in the adoption area up, and that's really good, like all of the kennel walls. And I think that's the majority of the stuff. Last time around when they were doing downstairs kennels for one of the other like sick isolation areas, I think it was only a week or so more, like a week and a half more after they had the walls up. So I don't know, we will see. I think we'll be done at some point. And it just seems like it keeps going on and on and on. So I think that's all for my week, for this week. I'm going to leave you with a couple of recommendations. So I saw two particular summer book recommendations. One for cozy mysteries from Beach Bum Bookworm, and one for general mystery and thriller type of books from Leandra, the TBR Zero. And I personally think mysteries are great for summer. They're so propulsive, and whether you go cozy or non-cozy, I think like that is a great vibe of recommendation for summer. So I want to point you over to those two videos, and then also kind of more of a vloggy style video. Beyond the Bookshelf did a tour of sort of Jane Austen places in England, and just shared a lot of footage of all the places that she went with her little dog too. And it was so delightful and charming that you absolutely have to check it out. So those are my recommendations for this week, and a great way to jump into summer, I think. So with that, I will say, I hope you have a wonderful week in reading and in life, and thank you so very much for watching.